Welcome into post-round coverage of the PGA Tour here on CBS Sports HQ. I'm your host, Joe Musso. Week 44 of 44 of the regular season takes us to Greensboro for the final round of the Wyndham Championship. The race for the big check, always one worth a watch, but playoff fate's also up for grabs on Sunday. First, a look at the final stroke of the regular season.
Go ahead and make it. Turn, turn, turn. That's what he does. The man from Greenville is a winner in Greensboro.
I'm happy for you, big man. So happy for you, man. That's all. Nice. Best thing ever, buddy.
And those updated standings with Lucas moving inside the top 50. There's your top 10 heading into the playoffs.
A moment worth the wait for Lucas Glover. A 2-hour delay due to some weather in the area throughout this round, but Glover emerges from that delay a champion. It was a win and you're in scenario for Lucas Glover when it comes to the FedEx Cup playoffs, and that was his only way in. Lucas Glover, we will see you in Memphis. CBS Sports golf analyst Doug Bell joins us with his instant reaction to all the storylines, really, that we saw Sunday out at Sedgefield. Doug, let's start with that winner there in Lucas Glover. 22 years a professional, 20 on tour, and in the winner's circle for just the second time in 11 years. The fortitude, the grind, all really highlighted here on Sunday.
Joe, I remember at Muirfield Village, I casually walked up to Lucas on a Wednesday and I said, hey, you're using the long putter now. And he laughed and said it was either this or go left-handed. The putting was so bad. A man who'd really struggled with the yips for years and had tried every grip, every putter, switches to the long putter, and he's a stubborn guy. He waited a long time to do that. Started playing better at the Travelers. We saw him at the Rocket Mortgage do very well, the John Deere, and it culminates with this dramatic win on a rain delay Sunday at the Wyndham Championship. Good for Lucas Glover. A man has been on tour now for 2 decades, a major champion, 5 wins now. But look out, he's always been a great ball striker, Joe, but now the putter seems to have gotten hot at the right time, and he seems very comfortable with the broom handle.
Yeah, we're seeing some of those larger format putters, whether it was the Jailbird earlier in the season for Wyndham Clark and Ricky Fowler, Keegan Bradley as well. We're now seeing the broomstick catch fire, and it catches fire here for Lucas Glover. Unbelievable when you think about the scenario of what he had to do to make the playoffs, and he does exactly what he had to. We were watching plenty of different things here on Sunday. Justin Thomas was someone that we are always watching, but as he hurtled towards the finish line of this season, knew what he had to do, and different permutations could have got him into the playoffs. But it is a would-be chip-in birdie at the last that ends him up in 71st position. Doug, I can't help but sit here and think that this guy, in this moment, knowing what he needed to do, pulling off a shot like that, we could go Ryder Cup, we could go playoffs. I want your big picture outlook on what these last 3 or so weeks meant for Justin Thomas and his reascent back to what we know he can be.
Well, he was adding events that he normally would not have played in because he desperately wanted to keep that streak alive where he'd never missed the playoffs on the PGA Tour. Knew he wasn't playing great, but he just kept plugging away, and he knew coming into this week he needed 4 solid rounds, opens with an even par round, and then it was more like the Justin Thomas we've known over the years. Didn't play spectacular golf the last 3 rounds, but played very good golf. And then it came down to that dramatic last shot. I jumped off the couch. I thought it was in as it hit the flagstick and caromed away. Grandma was there watching him. That was kind of a poignant moment as well. And he interviewed with Amanda and said, I'm going to wait around because I want to see if this shakes out in my favor. Unfortunately for JT, really one of the superstars in the game, he will be sitting on the sidelines as the tour goes on to Memphis next week for the top 70. Really incredible when you think it wasn't just a point out. It was less than 1 point on the computer that kept Justin Thomas out of the playoffs. But Joe, keep this in mind too. If he'd played better before this week, anywhere along the way, I mean, just one better tournament. This is a guy over the last 2 months missed a lot of cuts. So JT only has himself to blame.
Yeah, you make a great point right there. Not just one shot in that moment, one shot at any point over 44 tournaments. We know he does not play in them all, nor did he make the cut everywhere he did appear. But it is a year of what if for Justin Thomas, but perhaps the arrow pointed back up as he did say he is feeling like he's playing some better golf. Lightning nearly strikes there for Thomas, and then lightning literally strikes a few moments later. They sat and waited, Doug, for some 2 hours. Seemed like just about everybody came out of that delay flat. No telling how this plays out if Mother Nature does cooperate throughout. Can you speak to the struggle of those players, what they face when they do try and relaunch around in the midst of a race for a win on tour here?
Well, and listen, mentally, it's very, very difficult, especially rain delays happen all the time in professional golf. I mean, they happen on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But when there's just holes remaining and you know it's basically down to two guys, Russell Henley and Lucas Glover, mentally it takes its toll because you're sitting in the clubhouse, you're interviewing with Amanda, you're waiting, you go out on the range, you have a half hour to get ready, and then you go back out. And for Russell Henley, had not missed a green at all on Sunday until he comes out after the rain delay, and then bogeys 16, 17, and 18. That's like a dagger in the heart for a guy who had the lead, especially after he rolled in the two-putt birdie at 15. But again, it's agonizing, but that's professional golf. And Russell Henley will get to play next week in the playoffs and get to regroup. And of course, we told you all about the drama of Lucas Glover, who got it done. So I think he's a guy to watch in the playoffs as well next week.
Doug, each and every week on tour, we get something else. And there were a lot of angles, a lot of numbers, some math being done by non-mathematicians throughout these last couple hours here. But we really got a lot of drama over these last few weeks due to this top 70 scenario, and the names inserted within that drama were fantastic. I know we're still trying to make sense of what the tour is going to look like next season, but it really feels like we're headed in the right direction in terms of what matters and when it matters. What did you take away from this top 70 format for the first time?
Joe, you nailed it, because what has always culminated ever since the playoffs began, the Wyndham Championship would always come down to that final nine and who was in the top 125. And we're talking about guys, journeymen, who are fighting to play into the playoffs. And it was drama. I mean, they would break down and cry when they made it or when they would miss a putt on the last hole to miss it. And then this year, the major change, no longer 125, it's just 70. So those journeymen really get bumped out of the picture. And then we have this high drama with a superstar, a two-time major champion in Justin Thomas, fighting to keep his streak alive of making the playoffs. That's the one thing the PGA Tour has right. There's no question about it. The regular season is exciting as it culminates at the Wyndham Championship, and Sedgefield and the people there have gladly seized this tournament. We're the last stop, your last chance to get into the playoffs. I think it was fantastic. I know Lucas Glover commented this week in his press conference, he thought breaking it down to 70 was unnecessary. He thought 125 was the number because he felt a lot of good players are getting left out now and deserve a chance to play at least one more week. But I like it with 70, 50, and then ultimately 30. It's a shorter postseason. It's only 3 stops. It's only 70 players, and I like it. That is one thing the PGA Tour has absolutely nailed over the years. A lot of tweaks in the playoff system, but I think they finally have it right now with 70, and we saw the drama on full display on this final Sunday.
I will sit and co-sign everything you said right there. Glover wanted 125 because he was sitting 112, but now he's sitting pretty and inside that 70 after this win at the season finale, the regular season finale, that is. But there is no rest for the best. Top 70 headed to Memphis. Doug, is our team on CBS going to bring you the first stop and all stops to follow of the FedEx Cup playoffs? As you wrap your head around what's out in front of us right now, and maybe we turn our attention back to the top of those FedEx Cup standings, what do you think the discerning factor is going to be that separates the best in the world?
Well, it'll be interesting to see with Scheffler and Rahm and McIlroy and the like, the rest of those guys in that top 10, Wyndham Clark. We're talking about some very good players who've done some amazing things this year. They've taken the last few weeks off. Brian Harmon, there's video of him on social media working with his coach and getting his game back in gear after taking about a week off. How will the top players respond after a couple of weeks off as compared to the players who are fighting to get in, like Lucas Glover and others? Do those guys have the advantage because they're the hot golfers going into the playoffs? That's why I love the playoff picture, and that's why I love a place like Memphis. I mean, look at the names that are going to be back. I mean, this is so terribly exciting. And a guy like Tony Finau, for example, listen, we haven't mentioned Ryder Cup in this conversation, but he's fighting to get back into the Ryder Cup picture. It's going to be exciting, Joe. 3 weeks, Memphis and TPC Southwind is an underrated golf course. It is difficult. It's going to be a fight to the finish there. And then Olympia Fields in Chicago is just a wonderful layout. And we know all about Eastlake, where everything unfolds as they hoist the FedEx Cup. So if you love golf, you love professional golf, we have the best players from a long 44-week season, all headed to Memphis, Tennessee, and we'll see what unfolds. I'm just glad the guys like Rahm and Scheffler and McIlroy are back. I can't wait to see how they play next week.
It will be a multi-million-dollar game of musical chairs. And when the music stops, we will see Doug Bell. Looking forward to breaking it all down with you in the weeks to come. And here's a look at those weeks to come. FedEx St. Jude, August 10th through 13th in Memphis, as you just heard our guy Doug Bell say. TPC Southwind up next. Then the famed Olympia Fields set to host the BMW Championship in suburban Chicago. And it all comes down to Atlanta. Each and every year, the Tour Championship at Eastlake. All 3 tournaments coming your way on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.